What is going on? This is Seth Berger with the Defense Wins Fantasy Podcast, part of the FantasyHolics Podcast Network. Going through a little bit of IDP information here for you. One thing that I'm going to do tonight is we're going to talk about, some of the challenges that we have ranking IDP versus, standard scoring, superflex leagues, all that aspect. And then we're going to get into a little bit of the post-draft ranking of my defensive linemen and linebackers going into our, dynasty rookie drafts. But first off, really, one question that we've gotten a lot is, hey, top 100, add in the IDP players, add in your superflex, have it all in there. When you're talking offense, you can obviously mix and match with superflex, tight end premium leagues. It's very easy to kind of just adjust those rankings. Same thing with the IDP side. However you have your scoring variation set up, very easy to understand your rankings for those players. It's tough when we try to put those metrics together. And why I say that is that, there's been standard scoring metrics for offense for years. I mean, that's where fantasy football started, touchdown only. Then we added in some yardage and passing yardage and then completions or PPR and points per rush. All these things have been kind of added, but over time. But there's a standard, easy way to kind of click and say, hey, I'm in a PPR league. Hey, I'm in a superflex league where I got two quarterbacks. Very easy to kind of understand and the expectations set there. When we're looking at defense, it's still very, very young as far as, fantasy is concerned. And there's a lot of variations in that scoring system. I mean, not only do you have the ability to standard scoring across all positions, or you're going to have bonuses for big plays. You have deflections. You have tackle bonuses. You have maybe a D-line difference tackling. Like for D tackles, they get a little bit more than D ends or linebackers because they don't have as many. Sack yardage, not just the sack itself, but how many yards did the team lose while you were doing that? So many different variations on everything that's there. And on top of that, most IDP scoring systems are set up poorly for IDP players anyway. For them to be valued as high as some of the offensive players, when you're only going to get a point per tackle or 2 points per a sack, they're not going to make that top 100 ranking on any of those mixed lists. Whether it's superflex, whether it's just standard scoring PPR, you're not going to get that with a lot of IDP players anyway in the most common scoring aspects for IDP leagues. And then when we start talking about IDP leagues in general, there's so much variance on the positions themselves. Is your league defensive line, linebacker, defensive back? Or do you have D ends, D tackles, linebackers, safeties, corners? Do you have edge rushers that get a bonus for sacks and pressures and all that stuff? Do you have a punter on your team? Just kidding. Don't do that. Just don't do that. And if so, dibs on the punt god that just got drafted to the Bills. So I'm calling dibs on that if punters ever become a thing. But I'd prefer them to never become a thing. But yeah, so it's tough to vary that out because you're going to have also when you're talking about D-line, linebacker, and DB, basically your entire defense is flex positions. It's just like having a wide receiver tight end flex with your D-line, and then everything else. So that makes it a challenge too because really the way that they play is completely different. On top of that, a bunch of defenses play different schemes, but that's more comparable to offenses and that's fine. But when you really break it down, the easiest way to rank defensive players is alone based on their stats versus other defensive players' stats because no matter how your scoring system's set up, that will at least let the cream rise to the top. The big key is, though, and we'll talk about this on a future podcast, is how I believe IDP leagues scoring should be set up. Personally, I think that we need to have value brought back to the defensive side. The whole purpose of having an IDP league is to have more players and more ability to trade different players and have value to those players. If you're going to make every single one of them scoring less points than the terrible tight end market that we have out here, that to me is an issue. So come back for a future episode. I'm going to break that down pretty thoroughly on what I believe is one of the better ways to do it. And I've been doing it for over a decade. So it's been a lot of trial and error, but I feel that we have a lot of benefits and headway to go with that. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive into some of our defensive rookie rankings post-draft. We're going to start with the D-line, and I will do just D-line, not, D-tackle and all that, but we will do just D-line and linebackers in this draft. And starting with number 1, my top-ranked guy after the draft is Kayvon Thibodeau. For the Giants, he was drafted to the Giants. He's a freak athlete, and he had consistent numbers in college of pressures and getting to the quarterback. He has that ability. He has great moves coming off the end. And he's going to be playing across from Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. That's a pretty strong front. And the team itself on offense is, let's just say, unproven, okay? Kenny Galladay went there, did nothing last year. Daniel Jones, they refused to pick up his fifth-year option. They have Saquon Barkley. They did work on the offensive line a little bit, so we might see a little bit more benefits there. But Daniel Jones has been known to drop the ball. I mean, he just literally fumbles the ball more often than not. And so that's going to give more opportunities to the defense. And that's where you got to look at it, It's like, okay, so my offense can't sustain a drive. Well, guess what? That means that I'm going to have more defensive opportunities with my defensive players. Bad offenses breed good fantasy IDP players because they are on the field all the time. Works mostly, probably the best with linebackers and safeties, but with a guy that defends the run like Kayvon does and can pressure the quarterback, I believe that, he's going to have a really high ceiling, when it comes to rushing the passer. He probably has the highest ceiling in this draft class when it comes to that. And so that's why I have him at number 1. And with a new coaching staff, there's the opportunity that they're going to continue to build on what they've been trying to do. So the offense could get better. And I think that that's definitely a way that we're going to look at this team going forward. With that being said, I still think that he's going to be solid, consistent. Once again, a little bit more risk with this pick, absolutely. But he's got what I would consider the highest ceiling when it comes to pass rushers in this draft. We start looking at number 2, and we're talking about Aiden Hutchinson, that's now a Detroit Lion. Great story, played at Michigan, grew up in Michigan, now gets to play for the Lions. A guy that's going to be passionate, going to bring passion to that city, going to bring, some anger to that defense. I think that he's going to be the leader of that defense from day one coming in. And this guy's got a motor, man. It does not turn off. He will rush the passer. He will chase down the running back. He will do all those extra things that'll get you a few more points every week. He's just going to fight for it. He wants it. He's not going to stop until he gets there or until the play is over. The key, though, is he's got to have some other people around him. And as of now, he's kind of a lone island when it comes to that D-line. There's not a lot of talent there. They let go Trey Flowers. He has been injured, but he was a guy that could take some pressure off of Hutch, and he won't have that there. But he's going to be a force against the run. He's going to be a force against the pass. And it's going to allow him to stay on the field because he's so good at both of those. And once again, because he has that motor, he's going to have some rundown tackles and some sacks that are basically coverage sacks that he gets to the quarterback because he just doesn't stop. So that's a guy that, once again, probably has a higher floor than Kayvon. I don't think he'll have quite the ceiling, but he's going to be a guy that from day one you can put in your lineup, and he's going to get you some points every week. He's probably not going to be a guy that goose eggs you very often just because he has that desire and that motor, as I said. Now, number 3 might be a little bit more, unpopular opinion when it comes to my rankings. I have Jermaine Johnson as number 3. In my opinion, he has the best shot to come in just flat out of the gates strong. Why would you say that? He's on the Jets. Yeah, he is. But here's a list of the 2022 Jets opponents this year. The Dolphins, twice, Lions, Jaguars, Bears, Steelers, and Bengals. If anybody watched football last year, that was some pretty terrible O-line play coming from all those teams. Granted, Bengals went out and tried to help out their O-line, but I'll believe it when I see it because Joe Burrow was getting killed in the playoffs. We all saw it. And pair that with playing next to Carl Lawson and Quinnen Williams, he's not going to see very many double teams. Short-term redraft leagues, I lean towards him more than even maybe Kayvon and Aiden. But this guy has the capacity to be a strong force in this league, fell in the draft, went to the Jets with their 3rd first-round pick, and he went to a head coach that knows how to use defensive linemen. Robert Saleh, and we trust. He showed us what he can do and what is capable with the 49ers. He's building that defense out here. Hopefully Carl Lawson comes back healthy, and that's going to be a pretty great force. Like I said, the guy has the tools. He has the capability to be everything you want out of this. A top 10 defensive, top 10 pick in the draft is where people had him going. Defensive-wise, he's a guy that has the tools to be successful. He's going to be in a position to be successful playing against some terrible offensive lines. And I think that he has an opportunity to really surprise some people this year. Looking at number 4, I went with George Karlaftis. This is a classic example of situation over talent. Trayvon Walker, he was drafted number 1 overall, but Trayvon Walker doesn't have Pat Mahomes throwing the football around the field. Mahomes is going to be giving that team leads, which is going to allow old Georgie boy here to pin his ears back and get to the quarterback. On top of that, that division went out and bought wide receivers and quarterbacks like they were going out of style. They're going to be passing the ball all the time in the AFC West this year. So that arms race is going to only benefit people that are trying to get some sacks. Will he have the baseline that we will see with maybe Kayvon and Aiden on a week-to-week basis? No. He might even be more of a, rusher specialist starting out. But the fact of the matter is he's going to have more opportunities to rush for the passer than any of the other defensive ends that I've already talked about. So he's going to have the opportunity. And when you look at situation over talent, that bumps him up the list a little bit. So I look for George to be in a good pass rush position. Mostly out of the top 5. He's going to be the one that is going to have the most opportunity. He's not as talented as some of the other guys, I'll give you that. But you have to have the chance, So looking at number 5, this is where I finally have Trayvon Walker dialing into my top 5. Number 1 in the draft, number 5 on my board. Listen, the guy's a freak athlete. He showed it at the combine. What I hadn't seen, though, is the pass rush ability on tape. He has some moves. I'm not saying he's incapable of doing it. He can do it. And maybe part of that is because that Georgia defense was so stacked that there was just not enough plays to be made by him. And he wasn't asked to do that. He stayed in his lane. He's very coachable. He's, like I said, he's got the athletic measurables to be a talented pass rusher. But until he actually shows that consistent pass rush ability, I would not take him over some of these other guys. The fact of the matter is, he's, to his credit, he's great against the run, which will help him, in the tackles department. And it's a situation where the offense for this team is not very good, or it wasn't very good last year. Urban Meyer or not, it was a struggle. And as much as everybody loves Trevor Lawrence, he's got to prove it. He's definitely not Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to give the leads that George Karlaftis is going to enjoy going out there on defense, basically going against three passing plays in a row. You're going to have to get the baseline points with the tackles and hope that they can get enough pressure on the QBs to get some sacks, which once again, maybe 3 years from now, Trayvon Walker is the best defensive lineman in this class. I could absolutely see that happening. But as far as the ceiling on his pass rushing, until I see it, I have to put him a little bit lower down on the list. So that's my top 5, reviewing. It's Kayvon Thibodeau, number 1, Aiden Hutchinson, number 2, Jermaine Johnson, number 3, George Karlaftis, number 4, and then Trayvon Walker, number 5, when you're looking at IDP rankings. So we'll move into the linebackers. And as I said earlier, when you look at teams with bad offenses, it benefits linebackers probably the most. So number 1 on my list is Devin Lloyd, new Jaguars linebacker. This is no doubt the best linebacker for IDP leagues coming out of the draft, in my opinion. He's a 3-down guy. He's got great hands, and he can blitz the quarterback. He went to a bad team. Another plus there. That'll have their defense on the field most of the game. They were 31st, the Jaguars were. They were 31st last year in offensive time of possession. So for more opportunities to make tackles means you have more opportunities to score points. This guy is smart. He's aggressive. He's solid in coverage. When looking at linebackers in IDP leagues, in my opinion, is to find a tackling linebacker that has a plus category. Whether that category is in coverage, so he'll have more opportunities staying on the field on third down and in 2-minute drills, or if it's the blitzing ability, big plays, and again, you're on the field during passing downs because they want you trying to get to the quarterback, so more opportunities. Devin has pluses in both of these. He can rush the passer. He can cover linebacker. He can cover the zones. He can cover man-to-man. He can do it all. These pluses will help him have that high ceiling, high floor range week to week. I expect him to probably be in the top 15 linebackers scoring-wise his rookie year. Possibly higher, but I would say that his baseline is probably 15. One concern that you could have with him is that the Jags drafted Chad Muma, linebacker out of Wyoming in the 3rd round. So they got 2 linebackers the first 3 rounds. And that guy was a tackle hoss out of Wyoming. He had 129 tackles in 2021. So that's, once again, a guy that can take some opportunities away from Devin Lloyd, is something to at least be aware of. And if you can't get your hands on Devin Lloyd, go ahead and watch a little bit of tape on Chad and see if he's going to be a guy that's going to get on the field early. He's not in my top 5, but he's somebody I'm keeping an eye on, that's for sure. Number 2 is Nakobe Dean. He went to the Eagles. Now, let me be clear. There are some injury noise rumors around him right now, and that's why they believe he fell in the draft. So do your homework on these rumors before your draft. You don't want to get a guy that basically can't play this year. And although he's undersized, this guy flies around with reckless abandon. He is a tough guy that, he'll gut it out for the sake of the team, which might be why he hurt his draft stock a little bit. And he went to a great landing spot. The Eagles have needed linebacker help, oh my God, for years and years and years. And, they refused to draft him early. So the fact that they were able to get a guy with this much talent in the 3rd round is really a match made in heaven. Because why draft a linebacker when you can draft, Jalen Reagor in the 1st round? So, Dean's fall to the 3rd round worked out well for both of them. The risk, some of the risks that come with Dean is that he had a phenomenal line in front of him at Georgia, and that could have been why he was so available to get the tackles and make the big plays. But, lucky for him, Jordan Davis was also drafted by the Eagles, so he's going to be playing behind the same guy he did in college. And that guy is just a space monster. He just takes up so much. He's like Lodi Nada, and Nakobe could be Ray Lewis behind him. It's not to the saying that he's going to be Ray Lewis. I'm just saying that having the guy up front that's taking up 2 blockers allows you to shoot the gap and make the play on the running back. It's something that's going to be very, very beneficial for Nakobe, and he'll already know the tendencies of the D-tackle in front of him, so there'll be less of a learning curve. Once again, this is one concern I have, is that the Eagles' offense was a little bit slower, especially the back half of 2021. They did a lot more of the run-first offense, and they were focused on that. So that could give less opportunities for Nakobe on the field. But all in all, it should be a really, really big win for Dean. And the fact of the matter is that they traded for A.J. Brown, and he's really good at one-play touchdowns, so it'll help him get a little bit more on the field, and hopefully the Eagles are a little bit more explosive on offense coming into this year. My 3rd linebacker ranking that I have is Quay Walker for the Packers. 2nd Georgia linebacker on this list. Although drafted in front of Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, I have him sitting at 3rd. He has prototypical size and speed. 6'4", 240. He can handle incoming blockers and will be able to see over the trenches for coverage. He never had the production that Dean had in college, and the Packers are taking the approach that his athletic profile is too good to pass up on. And I tend to agree with them. I think that he is going to be a very stout running back. Now, with the Packers bringing back DeAndre Campbell, it's going to slow Quay's availability or, being an every down linebacker right off the bat. And he'll be in a position to succeed, though, long term. But the real question is his, prototypical size, speed, and all that, is he going to be, all flash and no substance when it gets to the NFL? I don't think so, but I also think that him being a first-round draft pick will probably push him up in your drafts to a point where I might look in a different direction. Like I said, if somebody's going to take Quay Walker and a round later I can get Nakobe Dean, I like the fit better with Dean. I like the player better. And I'm more comfortable with that situation because he had the measurables as far as statistics go in college. He was undersized, sure, but so was Zach Thomas, and he had a pretty good career. Now, number 4 on my list might take some people by surprise, and that's okay. So before everybody starts saying who, my guy is Troy Anderson out of Montana State. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Falcons after registering 96 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 picks this last year for Montana State. He stands up at a 6'3", 243, and runs a 4'4", 240. He's probably the most versatile player, at least athlete, in this draft. And I say that because this dude was playing linebacker, was playing running back, playing quarterback at the collegiate level. He's an explosive athlete that'll benefit from, a singular focus going forward where he's just focusing on all the ability to be a great linebacker. He's coming into a situation where he can play his way onto the field very quickly. In a weaker interior / 4-3 linebacker class, Troy Anderson, in my opinion, is a guy that can really make some noise. I like to compare him to this year's Logan Wilson. Not necessarily that their game shapes up, but a guy that was a small school guy that not a lot of people in your leagues are looking at or reviewing that you might be able to steal and have a really nice player on your team. Once again, Falcons offense. Falcons offense bad, more benefits for the defense. My 5th and final linebacker is Christian Harris from Alabama. He's drafted to the Houston Texans in the 3rd round. His best asset is his coverage ability. What I like about him most is the ability to keep him on the field because he can cover, as a linebacker, can cover tight ends, can cover slot wide receivers, can cover running backs coming out of the backfield. He's got that speed and he's got that ability. He's into a position, though, that's not as beneficial as some of the ones we've already talked about. Even though they got rid of Zach Cunningham last year, they still have Christian Kirksey, and they still have Kamu Grugier-Hill, who signed a 1-year deal this offseason to stay with the team. So that's probably his in, is that he might be able to take over playing time later in the year, but he's not going to be a day one starter. He's, both those guys were really good linebackers for them last year, and they're gonna stick with that because Lovie Smith was a D coordinator. He likes those guys. It's going to be one of those transitions, maybe back half of the year. He starts getting more playing time and is a little bit more of a comfort person that you're able to put in there on a weekly basis and know that you're going to get some points scored. But once again, both those guys are a little bit up in age, and Hill doesn't have the long-term contract. He just signed a $4 million deal this year, so it's not big money either. Now, albeit his 2021 film was a little bit underwhelming at times, there's no doubt that he's got the talent to be an impactful IDP player, going into the future. With that being said, that's kind of all I've got for you guys today. I appreciate you guys following along with me and any feedback on what you guys think. If you think that I'm completely off my rocker with some of my picks, let me hear about it. I'd love to hear your takes on some of these guys in this draft class. Going forward, like I said, I'll continue to update some more of the draft class IDP players that have caught my eye, as well as really going into this year's rankings. And as I said earlier in the podcast, one thing I really want to do is kind of really talk about if you're starting up an IDP league, where do you go first? It can be overwhelming, it can be challenging, and I'm here to help you guys kind of go through that path. I've had to do it myself. Didn't have a lot of information out there, so I'm happy to share that information going forward. But that's all I got for now, and I will see you guys next week. This podcast has been presented by the FantasyHolics Podcast Network.